Hello, everyone. Welcome to Atolo's Lobby Talks. My name's James Lemon, the founder of Atolo, and I'm really excited to be with you today. Lobby Talks is our new series that looks at the hospitality industry from a whole new angle. We take interesting characters from around the industry and we unpick their stories, their highs and lows, their tips for the future, and just generally get to know some of the great characters in the industry. Most of our guests are mentors on Atolo. Atolo is a new mentoring community platform for the industry. So if you like what you hear here, do head to myatolo.com, join the discussion and try and support this industry as we try and give it a really strong recovery. But I'm really excited to introduce our guest today, Amy Newbury. Amy is done the food industry by background, worked with some top chefs. She's broken out on her own, and now she's in the world of hospitality tech, which we will be unpicking with her. Welcome to the show, Amy. Great to see you.
Hi, James. Great to be here.
Fab. So let's dive straight into it. We always start, Amy, by meeting a fictional lobby. One day we'll do this in the real world and we'll be traveling the world. But for now, lobbies are where it's at. We want to peek behind the curtains. But what lobby have you taken us to? Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so today my lobby of choice is Elfen in Marrakesh. So the reason being that I actually didn't love Marrakesh as a city as a whole. I found it a bit kind of crazy. It was a bit of a circus. But behind this huge, unassuming door, it opened up into this incredible paradise. It was like dark red walls, white and black marble floors, just, opulence, slightly faded glamour. I loved it all. And also you've got the promise of being able to get a drink, which you can't in the rest of Marrakesh necessarily.
Yeah, I love it. And that is the Marrakesh vibe, isn't it? The streets are really busy and frantic and absolutely draining. And you just have hospitality in Marrakesh as these beautiful oases tucked behind really unassuming doors. So was this a very recent trip pre-pandemic?
Actually, it was a couple of years ago, and went all around, went to the mountains, but then did come back to Marrakesh. But Elfen was just somewhere that I absolutely wanted to go towards the end of the trip. It got an incredible rooftop and just like beautiful courtyards with twinkling lights filled with plants. Yeah, definitely. I think just somewhere that otherworldly that I'd love to be at the end of a pandemic.
Lovely. Well, let's sit back on the cushions and grab ourselves a tea or something a bit stronger, and let's get stuck into it. So our first segment we call Your Career in 60 Seconds. And I know you've had such a range of experiences and a really fascinating background, but are you up for the challenge? Could you summarize your career that fast for us?
I'll give it a go, yeah. Okay, so always wanted to work in food and had a brief stint working in publishing. When I was there, one of the chefs that we were publishing was looking for someone to join the team, and I decided to move back into restaurants. This was to join the team of Tom Sellers at Restaurant Story. I worked there for 3 years on special projects, particularly Merry Men, which was a pop-up I built during the refurbishment. And from there, I moved on to AllBright as the operations manager, which is an inspirational powerhouse for women. Running incredible events again. And then whilst I was there, my exec chef, Sabrina, was drowning in costings. And a contact that I'd made, I knew he was starting to build this tool. I moved on to Jelly then, which I just saw as an opportunity for the industry and something that I was just so passionate about building, incredible, like free costing software to help solve some of the problems that chefs face day to day.
Lovely. That was super fast. I feel like we've almost got time to spare. And tell us a bit about working. Tell us a bit about working with a celebrity chef. Because I'm sure for a lot of people, those are the social influencers of the industry. What was that like as, I suppose, a training ground? What was it like day to day?
Yeah, I think as a kind of hotbed of excitement, it was quite incredible. Obviously, what the food that we were producing there was just some of the most incredible food I'd ever seen personally. The stories behind it, obviously the name Restaurant Story, it means that every single dish has been put together for a purpose to kind of tell its own story, tell the story of the provenance of the ingredients, for example, or a particular moment in Tom's life as well. It's just a very bespoke experience as well, and something that you can't get every day.
Love it. Sounds good. Sounds good. I can't wait to check that one out. So look, let's get straight into it. We'd love to get to know you better. And so our next section's Good Day, Bad Day. And we always look at the highs and lows of someone's career. And some of our guests choose good first, some of us choose bad first. But over to you. Maybe you could take us through some of the lows, highs, lows of your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I guess of the good days, there were quite a few for me to choose from. I basically used to build pop-ups with friends, so there was tons and tons of those times where you have an incredibly difficult day and you come out of it and you hug your friends because you've just put on this incredible event in an unexpected space. But I think the kind of real cusp of that was a day when I was working at AllBright. I was tasked very, very early on with working with them to throw a hard hat party. Now, this was an all day kind of party with different events happening on different floors and in a complete building site because it was pre any kind of electricity going in, and about kind of working out those logistics, being able to, find the spaces, put in all of the decorations so it didn't look like a building site, but it did. And then throw in a gigantic party in the evening, bringing together sponsors, artists, guests, of course, and making it a really incredible experience for everybody who not only was part of building it, but also the people who were coming to join it as well. So that was a particularly brilliant day, I think. And every time I can really encourage people to do pop-ups because you get that same rush and that same feeling of completion, whilst also meeting incredible people along the way who are also kind of sharing that passion for trying stuff out. Now, I think the bad day story, which I've thought long and hard about, there are obviously bad days in what you do in hospitality. There's lots of characters involved, but I think one of them has to be, can we all remember the Beast from the East? It was a March. It was horrendous for much of hospitality, not least because London came to a standstill, but particularly bad for me and the team at Restaurant Story because I woke up probably about 7 a.m. and had about 100 missed calls. Looked at my phone and was like, what is going on here? And basically the ice had frozen one of the pipes in the downstairs kitchen, which had exploded. So it had flooded the whole of the bottom floor, the basement prep kitchen, and then obviously the toilets as well, which was down underneath Restaurant Story. So I wrapped myself up and walked in the blizzard through Burgess Park to Restaurant Story. And when I got there, the whole team were wading into the fridges and getting out all of the produce, whole cod, putting them in bin bags and just putting them in the snow outside. I was like calling every hire company in London, trying to find fans, trying to find pumps that we were going to try and get all the water out with, and also stop the water itself from coming in. Eventually, after several hours of really, really solid work, we all went to the pub. And let me tell you, that was probably some of the most somber Guinnesses that have ever been drunk at the Woolpack on Bermondsey Street. We just sat around thinking, like, what do we do now? We didn't have a restaurant. And ultimately, when you have that much talent sat around one table with nothing to do, it's quite a depressing experience.
Yeah. Goodness, I mean, I can't even imagine. I'm getting nervous even thinking about that experience. So I guess I have to ask you, what were the next steps? What did you do over the next few days and weeks? How did that unfold?
I mean, to be honest, you've got a lot of nervous energy in a group of highly talented chefs. So managing people and managing what the next steps would be, not least sorting out things around insurance, for example. It's the type of catastrophe that you'd never think that you have to deal with. And so we were trying to rifle through reams of insurance documents, working out where we stood, not getting that much information back, and not least calling guests. I think one of the things about hospitality is you've got people's experiences in your hands. And so you have to call up guests who've maybe been waiting 6 months and book this around their anniversary and tell them that, sorry, you can't come for a Michelin star dinner for your wedding anniversary. You're going to have to find somewhere else tomorrow night. And like doing that to people obviously was incredibly stressful on every level for every part of the team. And just trying to manage the people involved with that is like, it's never going to be a good day.
Yeah, I think that really is. I think we've kind of come to this theme a couple of times in this series. It's just that pressure that we're delivering such special experiences for people, right? Whether it be in restaurants, hotels, or events. That's really what we sign up for, right? That's what we get a kick out of. That's what we love. That's why we kind of exist in this industry. But on those bad days where you have to say no, where you have to cancel it, it's absolutely heartbreaking, isn't it? But when you live to create those experiences, you've got this army of chefs ready to go, this fully booked restaurant. That must have been really tough. And I suppose how did you, in terms of leadership, how did you think about picking the team up off their feet and kind of getting them through those next few weeks?
I mean, honestly, it was as much about supporting Tom in all of that, as well as the chefs themselves. I think that probably for some of them that could do with a bit of a break, as we all know, chefs work incredibly hard, as do the front of house teams. It probably wasn't the worst thing for them to have a few days off. It was just the idea that we didn't know how long it was going to last, because everything had ground to a halt inside London. It meant that we couldn't hire the fans that we needed because everybody else had had the same problems. And fundamentally, it was down to some sort of bad handiwork that hadn't insulated a pipe properly. So again, it was, contacting historical builders who'd put the building together in the first place. And it was just one of those messes that you thought that you were going into a week. I think it was only about Wednesday, maybe. And you were really, excited for the weekend. As we all know, it's a giant push till then. And then just to be so incredibly disappointed and not really know what the end point would be. But yeah. I mean, we moved on from it a little bit soggier as a result.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've been through a flooding myself, actually, and it is just heartbreaking. Something you've worked so hard to pull together. So I definitely feel that. Yeah. But I don't want to move on without revisiting your good day. So the idea of these spontaneous parties, I've never heard of a hard hat party. It feels like when you move house and you invite people around for pizza if they pick up a box a little bit. But talk me through, do you think with kind of, a bit more uncertainty and instability now with, are things back up and running? Could they get stalled again? Do you think we'll see more of these spontaneous pop-up parties, events? Do you think it's a great use of space, which there is a lot more of now in London and in hospitality potentially?
Yeah, I think honestly, like particularly the hard hat parties are a brilliant way for you bringing recognition to your brand before maybe your brand's ready to go out into the world. So if you've got a building and you want to get people excited about it and create a bit of buzz, but you know that the build might be particularly long, it's a great way for you to then go, well, this is a little bit kind of ramshackle and put together, but as long as, as long as you kind of know the good stuff about hospitality, you try and get some glassware together, you put some beautiful flowers out, and you can dress beautiful spaces, even if they're not in their most perfect state, in a way that makes people walk in and still go, wow. So like, for example, we put up, we had a graffiti artist graffitiing some of the walls with the slogans of the brand, for example, and across the floors as well, and then put flat, beautiful flowers everywhere, and then had champagne, because like, why not? This is a way of you being able to christen your brand new venue. So yeah, that was in one particular way. But I think on the just general pop-up scene, I've seen a lot of chefs who've been just chomping at the bit for the past 18 months. Maybe they haven't been able to be in their restaurant, or their restaurant has been doing takeaway and kind of, reduced service. So now that that's kind of over, you're just seeing so much fresh talent think, right, I want to break out on my own, or I want to try out some things. So I think there's some incredible venues that foster that. For example, Carousel, that's an incredible space that puts on a roving roster of chefs day to day.
Yeah, fantastic. I think we could definitely look at partnerships more creatively. I remember I was working with a big hotel chain on partnerships kind of when all this kicked off. And one of the things that we quickly looked at was, are there chefs whose maybe restaurant are just going to have to close, can't be, but actually part of the hotel could still be open. And, hotel restaurants are often not that busy, so actually utilizing some of these chefs and some of these amazing venues, I think you could see some really interesting collaborations in the pop-up world. So it'd be really interesting to see. There's been so much innovation, hasn't there, over the last 18 months, almost kind of fully formed restaurant meals being delivered to our homes. As we get back out there, it'd be fantastic to see more maybe neighborhood restaurants popping up in interesting places. Yeah, I love the innovation in the space, so it could be really exciting. Fantastic. Well, look, for our next section, it's called Last Day on Earth, and we definitely don't want to bring the mood down, but I guess the added pressure of it could be your last hotel stay always makes for a bit of fun. So we asked people to take us through, what would be your very last hotel you'd stay at, the very last place you'd eat, and the very last event you'd go to. So would love to hear the hotel you've got in mind for that day.
So for sure. So I thought long and hard about this and was starting to think about far-flung places. And then I realized that being quite logistics friendly, let's call myself, being quite logistics friendly with only one day left on Earth, I probably wouldn't want to spend too much of it traveling. And because I'm based in London, I never stay in London hotels pretty much. So I would like to stay at the Nomad Hotel because it is utterly gorgeous on the inside. It's just based in Covent Garden and it's got an incredible bar for those who haven't been. And there I'd like to plot the rest of what I'm going to do with my last day on Earth.
Sounds good. Well, let's get into it. Sounds like you're itching to go. So you're right in the middle of London. You're at the Nomads. Sounds awesome. Where are you taking us next?
Sure. So I think the last meal that I'd ever have, it would have to involve seafood. I think some of my favorite things are seafood, carbs, wine. You see where I'm going here. So I'd probably, sticking on the London theme, I'd get a dressed crab from Sheiky's, classic, with some hot bread. I mean, if I can start to meld them all together, I'd maybe get some bread from Derby's potentially, have that joining forces. My last meal on earth would have to involve chips. You know, they could be chippy chips. I'm fine with that. Or they could be the, you know, those really delicious crispy ones from Cora Pearl. They could come in on the side. Maybe both. Who knows?
I feel like in this mix and match fantasy meal, you've got to do a little bit of both, right? So we've got this dressed crab coming in. We've got bread, 2 portions of chips.
Yeah, obviously some vegetables
working.
somewhere, James, but I don't mind where they come from.
Fair enough.
And I'd probably maybe say it would be served to me by the team from Core, because they are just second to none in terms of their levels of service. As long as they don't mind serving me bread and 2 types of chips
from other restaurants.
Yeah.
What is it about that team? What is it about that team in the world of hospitality that you admire so much?
I think that it's the incredible, you know, it's the depth of knowledge that team holds. I think that they are just, you know, so clearly so passionate about what they do. Also, it's the just like incredible generosity and friendship, like working front of house, as those of you who might be listening might have done. You know, it's a job where you are quite literally hosting somebody in your home, as it were, and being able to give that much to somebody when you've never met them before, make them feel incredibly welcome over the course of several hours as well, because it's a tasting menu in your restaurant. I think is just an incredible skill, and one that probably isn't valued enough in the outside world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is very much the mood of the day, right? Is actually, this is really a phenomenal skill that takes years to develop, and we should all be really proud of. It's a privilege, right, to serve people the way that we do. If you were in that position, if you're in a new venue, just to get off topic a bit, if you're in a new venue and you wanted to build that kind of a team, where would you start? How do you start to build that kind of performance culture in, you know, a front of house team?
Honestly, I'd say it's about the shared collective vision. So I think you need to be really clear from the outset what level of service that you want to do. If it's incredibly casual service, then you stick with it and you run with it, and you make sure that everybody knows the parameters. I think building quite strong SOPs, to use the correct term, but building quite strong kind of expectations in around those touch points. I think a lot of it is just plain common sense, James, when it comes down to it, which is never leave a table, you know, untouched. Make sure that people feel incredibly welcome, and also recognize that your guests might be having a bad day sometimes too. So never to take it too much to heart. Essentially, I think hospitality can kind of make you quite unshockable at times, and that's no bad thing. You know, a thick skin, but also empathy towards your guests, I think will just get you a very long way.
Yeah, don't disagree with that at all. No, fantastic. So look, we were kind of at this amazing main course. What else is, anything else in this meal? Anything else in this restaurant you want to take us to?
So I mean, I'd always put some scallops on there. Sorry, keeping on the seafood theme. I do like dessert. It's just not the first thing I'd always choose necessarily. However, I'd probably say like some kind of gigantic pavlova themed thing would probably do the trick, but one to share. I'd want it to go all around the table with all of the people that I'm with, so that you can kind of scoop generous amounts out and then pass it on.
Nice, like a proper family style eclectic mix. No,
100%.
cool. So do you remind your seafood obsession reminds you of a place? Did you, when you were in Morocco, we're obviously sitting here in the lobby, did you make it down to Essaouira on the coast?
I actually didn't have time, but it is a regret of mine, because I think I'd really love it.
Well, exactly what I was going to say. So instead of going up in the mountains, that's where we headed for, I think it was just a day trip. But of course, there on the harbour, it's quite famous. The ships come in, and then it's literally, the food is grilled right there. No fanciness at all. I think you can maybe grab bread. That's about it. And so you're just sitting eating these amazing fresh cooked crabs and scallops and fish. It was just incredible. It feels like the kind of place that would do. Go
on. It also reminds me of, have you been to Mersey Island? Just out in Essex, there's a place called the Fish Shed there, and you literally take your own bread and wine, and you just get as much seafood as you could eat, which is just incredible. And you can do that in the UK.
Yeah, it's fab. Well, I was going to comment. It's fantastic that you're it's fantastic that your kind of last day on Earth was a London spot. Isn't it fascinating? It's kind of, we've been stuck in London for kind of 18 months, many of us stuck in, you know, our home countries, and there's still so much to unpick, whether it be the joys of the capital city and amazing hospitality, or in the UK, I'm sure lots of people have discovered these amazing coastal towns almost through the need. But you're right, great seafood, great hospitality, and hopefully there'll be a regeneration of that kind of UK domestic travel we'll see for years to come if hospitality's done its job this summer. Very cool.
Sure.
And then, so let's finish up with an event. You've had this amazing seafood meal. You're probably feeling a bit stuffed, but where are you taking us to party, or what event have you got in mind?
Okay, so in terms of like a global event, I think that crossing the world altogether, I would probably go to the cherry blossom in Japan, just because I think that would be one of the most show-stopping events to end the world on. Not least as well, because tied into that, you'd clearly need some Japanese hospitality in there. I've always wanted to visit Japan. I think the food and drink is incredible, as well as the culture. So I think that would be my final stop on Earth, to see that incredible sort of force of nature coupled with some extremely high quality hospitality.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that definitely, I think for a lot of people, is a trip of a lifetime kind of thing. And they did such a great job with the Olympics, right? Obviously, kind of huge amount of uncertainty, but it felt like even though no one could go, what a great way to showcase a country, I think. And so fingers crossed, Japan will be firmly on the map for a lot of people when all of this uncovers. So yeah, fantastic. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So our next section, we call it the guest list. And it wouldn't be fair, of the guest book, it wouldn't be fair to let you go without leaving a few comments in it for the world, you know, the Atollo community and people beyond, as they think about, well, what's next for them, what's next for their hospitality career. So you've got this really rich background, but would love to hear from you. What is some of your advice? What are some of the wisdom that you'd leave behind for others about hospitality?
So I put together a couple of more practical pieces of advice, and one slightly more kind of overarching. But I think number one in hospitality is never lie to yourself about how much something costs. I think it's very, very easy to do when you're planning events, when you're building restaurants, when you're doing openings, for things to get out of control in terms of your budget. And I think that keeping basically just never lie to yourself, because ultimately it's going to come out of your bottom line. And I think another one is, this one makes me laugh, but it's always look after your dishwasher. Honestly, it's such a workhorse on the team that you've always got to look after your dishwasher, and indeed any equipment. You know, never buy it cheap, always look after it and make sure that you maintain everything so that your team can have a nice, smooth service. I think when you said dishwasher, I was thinking for a minute then you meant the person who looks after dishes, but you actually just mean the machine. The machine has to do its job. I'd say a KP, not the dishwasher. Imagine that on my CV.
Well, the reason why I say it is because I spent my first 3 years in hospitality at a French cafe on the Isle of Wight where I grew up, and I was the dishwasher. Exactly. For a long time, you know, that's a big debate for the industry. When do you start taking your early jobs off your CV? Mine was probably on their way too late, because it's very much responsibility, team working, all these transferable skills we talk about in hospitality. You do also get from dishwashing. So it has to be said. So I probably didn't take it off my CV till I was about 35. But yeah, I remember long days sitting in the kitchen, working in the kitchen, dire straits back to back on my little stereo that I bought in. And it's tough, right? It's tough, like getting the sink right, and then getting the machine right, getting the drying right, especially the glassware. It's unsung heroes, I think. I've been there. And the stories in hospitality. Sorry, I'm just rambling now.
The strength of the kitchen always comes from basically the support team, because otherwise you haven't got any plates to serve the food on. You know, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's the classic role of no one notices it until it goes wrong, and then all hell breaks loose. But I think the number of stories we hear of hospitality being the kind of industry where you literally can start cleaning the dishes, and then you come back and you're running the hotel, or you're running the restaurant, or you're leading the brand. I think that's one of the things we love about this industry, is if you can find that passion early on in the most kind of straightforward of tasks in the industry, then it starts to unlock the pathway, right? So suddenly you can be in training or marketing or tech or leadership roles. You can do all these fascinating things, but great to do your time at the start. So there you go. Tom's saying he's going to treat his dishwasher to a trip to Japan. Now, I've literally got no idea if he's talking about the person that does the dishes or the machinery. I mean, the excess baggage on that would be huge.
Yeah, I hope you're not talking about your wife there, Tom.
I cut off your experience. You got me onto dishwashing, which is a very sensitive topic.
I know. I've just got one final piece, and I think it's always to just, it is the most pleasurable job in the world if you enjoy it, and you can become quite ground down, I think, by the long hours, the amount of yourself that you need to give to it. But I think ultimately understanding that your responsibility is to the guests, and you're not performing open heart surgery. You're giving people a good time. Like, relax, enjoy yourself. You know what you're doing, and you can have hard days, but you can have the best days as well. And working with so many passionate people who are full of life is a true pleasure, I think. It's honestly, it's an honor.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you find it, you realize it's a real privilege to serve people like that, and the best job in the world, wherever you are in the industry. But I think it's also, I think what I guess I still wrestle with, which you may have some thoughts on, Amy, is that just innate, that you just have a passion for serving people, or is that something that you learn by doing it, and actually, you create some of these memorable experiences and you suddenly kind of learn it and get hooked on it? I don't know if you've got a view on it. Do you feel like this has always been a space for you, or do you feel like you had one or two moments that got you hooked on it?
I think it's always been a space. I mean, I love the energy of service. If you do the briefing and then you set a team off and you're just there kind of playing the orchestra, as it were, I think that's an incredibly rewarding experience. But I think ultimately it can happen at different points for lots of people. So you see young people joining the industry, and it might be that they have a difficult first couple of shifts, but then there might just be that moment where they're laughing with their team, or they have an incredible guest experience, or they find something out about a guest, or they start working at a different restaurant that suits them better. And suddenly they go, wow, this is actually not only something that I want to do for now, but I want to find a way to work around it forever, even if it's not in the same capacity that they started off in.
Yeah. So kind of giving people permission that you may need to try a few parts of hospitality, right? Go and work in a restaurant, work in a hotel, maybe work in the supply chain somewhere, in a tech provider, kick off your own business. It's quite easy in this industry to start something of your own, see where it takes you. Yeah, fascinating. And I guess, what's your outlook for the industry? Because obviously people are talking a lot about talent. People are talking a lot about, where it goes next. Are you fairly optimistic about the future for the hospitality industry?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that it's helped a lot by the fact that the hospitality industry in the UK particularly has become very fashionable. Whereas, when I was growing up, it wasn't necessarily a fashionable choice of career. And then in the past sort of 10 years, it's become one of the hottest in the country. But it's still kind of riddled with certain issues around the hours, the pay. It can be quite antisocial. And I think that one of the things that you do have to impress upon people is it's hard work, but it pays off. And I think that in terms of my hope for it is to encourage more people to understand the value of what you're doing. And I think that actually, if anything, COVID was so awful for the industry, but in terms of the guests beginning to understand how much having spaces that are meaningful to them, for them to visit, are actually, it's brought about a fresh perspective on how important hospitality is to the UK in general.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And although it's not always positive, certainly the hospitality is on the front page most days at the moment, talking about creating experiences, talking about the importance, if you've made a reservation, show up, talking about how we can treat staff better and how we can really promote the industry. So you've got to think that tough times right now, but definitely optimism for the future. Fingers crossed. So unfortunately, I try and stick to time. That's brought us to the end. Our very last section is what we call the checkout, which is our goodbyes, really. But I think, a huge thank you, Amy, for joining us. I think for those kind of watching and listening, we're going to throw a short feedback form in the survey. If you're listening to this back afterwards, drop me a note on james@myatolo.com. Let me know what you like, what you want to see differently on the show. Obviously, we'd love you to join the Atollo community at myatollo.com. It's completely free. It's a space for people to connect with industry leaders like Amy, to get some mentorship, get a steer, plan your career, get top tips, whatever you're looking for. We're trying to make it a space for genuine collaboration, support, and development. So, Amy, I'm sure we'll see you there as well to answer people's questions and thoughts. But in the meantime, just a huge thank you from all of us. It's been great to have you with us today.
Thanks, James. It's been great.
Cool. And we're now kicking into October. So every Tuesday lunchtime and Thursday at 5 UK time, we're going to be back twice a week. So adjust that to your local time zone, but we can't wait to see you here from now till Christmas. So Amy, thanks again. Team behind the scenes, thanks very much. We will see you all soon. Stay safe. Thank you. Bye.